All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to, I don't know, again, I'll never know the episode number that we're on. So regardless, welcome. Today we're going to be talking to Brad Spencer, which is rad. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Now, the cool part is as you introduce yourself, I'm going to let you have the floor to answer the question that every single person asks you, because no one really knows when they see you what you do. So this is Brad Spencer. Welcome aboard, and feel free to tell people what you do, because you're a big deal. You're a big deal, but not everyone knows why you're a big deal. So I'll sit back and let you roll.
Okay. All right. That's cool, because I get asked this all the time. So let me take a swig of my coffee, because make sure I'm energized up for you guys. So my name's Brad Spencer, and I'm the Women Deal Maker. And what I do and what I've done throughout the years, I've done a whole lot of things online. I've been doing this for 8 years now. And what I do is I put deals together. So I usually am, a lot of people think of it as like a JV broker. I've done a lot of that, and I've done a lot of business development. So offer creation, creating offers, writing campaigns, all that kind of stuff. I make a lot of money for a lot of people in the background. Even though I do like to be on camera and speak on stage and do podcast interviews and all sorts of different things. I love all that too, and creating my own content. Where I've been at my highest leverage has always been in the deal-making capacity. So linking people with offers with other people and figuring out ways to not just like connect them when there's something on the surface, but take something that people don't realize they can have and like alchemy a deal together. So I'm more than just like the connector. I'm also the connector / strategist. So like, why would this person like working with this person? Why would this offer work for this list if we just tweak the angle a little bit? You know what I mean? So it's like a broker connector as well as, strategist. And we've done pretty well over the last couple of years. I've done a couple $1 million for people, and that's all well and good and everything, but yeah, it's been pretty good ride, man. So that's what I do, man. Like I'm the guy that puts everybody together, and I get a cut in the middle. Usually is how I make my money. So it's good stuff.
All right, that's cool. So I mean, for you, me, and the guys in the background that are making their money, that understand that and see it. I mean, this is going to reach to absolutely everybody. So like, of all levels. So what the hell? How are you sitting there? Like, because a lot of the people here are like, they're still chasing, like, the whole goal of Behind the Hype is we go behind and we talk about it. So why the hell does that even matter in the world of making money on the interwebs? You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah. No, totally. And a lot of people, see, the thing is, like, I come from a true business background. Like, I've got a degree in finance. So I've got that whole world, down pat. And then I've also owned a restaurant and sold cruises. I've done the internet stuff for 8 years. I've done everything from creating my own products before WSOs were even big. I remember I was the 4th lifetime purchaser of Warrior Plus back in the day, or like an annual license, whatever it was, for when he first came out with, WSO Pro or Warrior. Yeah, well, I don't even know what WSO Pro, whatever the hell it is, way back in the day. So, I've been in this a long time and seen a lot of models change. But one thing that doesn't change, and online and offline, and work for Disney doing the same thing as well, is connecting with people is always a must. Like, when people are starting out, they think, oh, let me build a list, and I'll build a big list, and I'll sell a lot of products. And I work with, just in the last week, I work with a group of folks, and we did a class for about $800. Okay, so that's first off. We're selling high-ticket stuff. I'm in the mid-ticket range. $297 is very low for me, and then most of it's $500 to $2,000 is like my average ticket. Just so people are aware that where I'm coming from when I sell products. So we ended on Tuesday and did about $116,000 on a class, and we offered an annual license to a software that was sitting around doing nothing, and created like a 2-session class out of the blue. So I came up with that offer. I wrote the campaign. I told them what needed to happen each class. And, I get cut in on that, obviously, because I'm creating an asset. But then what we're going to do with that is we're taking that and turning it into a long-term asset, because that software, it's in the Amazon e-commerce world for people who do the FBA, not the Shopify stuff, but more the FBA world. And, I come in and do that. And, like, what people don't realize is that you can sell simple PDFs. I mean, you go back and look me over the Warrior Forum back in 2011. I've got all my little $5, $10 products, and I love that model and email marketing. But that's one form of leverage. But where I am strong and powerful is that I know how to get with everybody. I know how to find what makes people tick and what people's goals are, because a lot of people's goals, right, and this is why deal making comes in, and like knowing people and having that kind of soft touch, is a lot of people making more money is not their number one driver. After a certain point, we all have a number where money, the marginal value of it goes down, and it's more about how we make the money, who we do it with, all those types of things. And I think everybody hits a certain point, and everybody has a different number where their income, and they're like, okay, well, if I make $100,000, what's an extra $10,000? Because my life isn't going to change. It's more, who am I doing it with? Or do I like it? Do I have fun doing this? Am I excited when I wake up, or am I burned out all the time? I mean, there's a lot of people who would rather make less and not be burned out. And that's where a lot of people, when they're starting out in the deal-making sense, they're building their thing. And, it's easy to understand when you're starting out and you're not making a lot of money online. You want to make as much as possible. But you'll hit a point, and everybody does, who sticks with it long enough, where they're like, oh shit, man, I'm working my ass off, and my income's not growing, but I'm working harder and harder. And then that's where, being savvy with the deal making comes in, because you might have assets laying around, and you give them to someone like me, and I can reposition them in an hour and triple their value and just make money rain. So that's where it's a different mindset, and that's why deal making is important, because after a point, you will run it. Every model has its limits. Everything has its bottlenecks and stuff like that. And I'm really good, because I've done so many things, at showing people when I work with them, or when they, let's watch my videos on Facebook or whatever, to see, okay, I'm at the end of this model. I need to adopt some of this stuff over here. And that's where, to grow, a lot of times it's not doing more, it's doing things smarter that helps people. And so that's why that's important, man. And I mean, this, from your own business, you've grown a lot the last 3-4 years or whatever it's been, but that's where we all hit that point where, like, yep, I maxed that out. I'm going to just keep hitting up on this, ceiling a little bit. I got to switch gears and then, take the next stage up. And that's where I'm really good at with people.
Yeah. So, I mean, just as you said something there, it almost sounds like you're that guy who they get here, right? Like, and we all get there. Once you try it, I mean, if anyone's sitting back still questioning whether this works or not, guys, dial it the fuck in and get to work, because it is. It does work. Right. You find your offer anywhere you want, and you can get going. But to me, what it sounds like is, it sounds like you're the after the fact guy. That initial offer gets going, but then there is that little kind of lull. And it sounds like what you do in the relationships that you have allow people to not go like this so much. It allows them to continue to trend upwards. Is that?
Yeah. So the way I explain to people is, I'm actually a magnifying glass, right? I'm either 0 or 100. And this is one of the big lessons I learned last year with myself, because I was working with a lot of people who weren't ready for me, and like, nothing happens when someone's not ready for me, because I'm also not in the business of convincing anybody. Like, I've done this long enough, and I've proven myself over and over and over, and done millions of dollars in this world, which in the big scheme of things is not that much money, let's be honest. But in this world, a lot of people have not done that, especially when it's other people's offers, not even their own offers. That's even another layer of difficulty, because you have to deal with people's emotional stuff and people's different ways of doing stuff. And I've still been able to do it. So I don't get in the business of convincing people. So when you come to me, if you're at the right time, it's either 0 or 100. Like, 0 times 100 is still 0. 1 times 100 is 100. So it's either, at the end result, you're either 0 or 100. I'm the nitrous in a car, like for all our car buffs. I'm the guy when you're hitting the gas and you hit the nitrous and you want to go a little bit, but I'm the nitrous that keeps going, because I won't burn your engine out. But it's just a different way of doing stuff. So I actually, a lot of times, people start working with me, their income goes down a little bit at first, and this is the test of faith, because it's not about just because if I've got to convince you, like, so like, for example, a lot of times people come to me and they'll say, I've got an offer and it's $197. Okay, well, that's automatically out, because it's too low for me. With my pay rate, I get paid a percentage of the action, so I don't take a lot of upfront fees. I don't do that kind of shit, because it's a pain in the ass. I always do pay per performance, because I know, one, I'll make more money, and two, it's lower risk for everybody. So that's first off deal breaker if they come to me with that. But if I've got to convince them where I can make them more money with 2 deals a month with people in my world if the offer fits the type of thing and it's structured correctly than someone doing launches that are huge and getting lots of customers. Now, launches are still important, and I've done plenty of them over the years, but like you're not going to see me out there doing a $300,000-$400,000 launch necessarily, because that's not my world. It's not where my systems are. You know, my systems are on how do we do $50,000 on one webinar with one affiliate.
So how the hell
Or
did we do
$30,000?
Like, here's the deal, man.
Yeah.
This is a good point, and this is my favorite part, because you always say something that's like, when we talk, where I'm like, all right, yeah, fucking right. So we're sitting there, and you know, to me, when I first got going, I'm like, all right, so 50,000 on a launch is a lot, and then you start moving up, and you're like, well, really, it's not, and it's all a matter of perspective of where you're going.
Right.
And to me, the launch now coupled with that back, I mean, once you start realizing that, okay, 100 grand is still not even that much for a lot of people on a launch. And then you put 100 grand on the back of that. I mean, look at the numbers that we're throwing around here. How the hell does someone add $50,000 on the back? Like, let's take that. Let's not assume that anybody actually understands.
Oh, absolutely.
To the beginning, how they're going to do that. So where are you putting that $50,000? Like, is it great a webinar, but like, is there a flow, a structure that people have to have in a webinar to even come and talk to a guy like you, or to have those expectations? Do you know what I mean? What are you looking for?
Totally. So the big thing that I'm looking for, one, is you're going to have a $500 to $1,000 price point. Okay, and first big awareness that I have everybody go through, and this just gets more and more important, and it's like an order of magnitude every time you go up in price. So like the amount you have to give for a $500 offer is 1/10 the amount you have to give for a little launch product, because the higher in price you go, it's more about the results, and it's defined by the results. Like the reason you'd pay $5 grand is because you're not going to pay $5 grand for a bunch of videos, because the fact is you're not going to watch them. Most people don't. Most people don't even watch $20 videos. Like when there's like 20 videos in the course and you look at your data, you'll find most people don't watch that. So it's even more true at the higher end. Okay, very few people will actually walk through something. And I've always had a belief, and I've seen this proven many times with guys who sell a lot of higher ticket things, and that's the first thing, is higher prices. Just because it's law of large numbers, it's easier to sell one $500 thing than it is to sell 10 $50 things to the right person. But the big problem that people have is they think they got to give more. And the thing is, and I don't remember who I was speaking with around Christmas time, where they brought this up, and they said it's actually, if you take 15 minutes to say something that can be said in 3, you're actually doing your client a disservice.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing for people to get is it's like, are you either selling vitamins or are you selling painkillers? You know, and the story, and I think it was Kevin Nations that said this, and it just sunk in. I've heard this said a lot of different ways, but this story set into me. You know, guy's got a busted tooth, goes into the dentist, oh, my tooth hurts, Guy's like, okay, we got to pull it, you know, it'll fix it. And the guy's like, okay, how much is it? He's like, it's $600. Okay, great. Like, how long is it going to take you? It'll take me about 10 minutes. And the guy's like, wow, $600 for 10 minutes. And he's like, that's an awful lot of money for 10 minutes of work. And he's like, okay, well, I mean, I can take 10 minutes, or I can take the next 8 hours to do it. Which would you rather do? If you have a toothache, you want it out as damn quick as possible. And when you go into higher priced offers, and this is where the difference between like the perpetual launchers and the higher end is, you're selling something that has a pain to people. That's why people want classes. You know, classes, you know, people sell like, oh, I'm going to give you a lot of access to me, and you're going to get this, and you're going to get that, and you're going to get this, and you're going to get that. And they think that, you know, okay, if I spent $2,000 with this guy, I got to give him more. And it's more the structure of things than it is actually like what you're giving them in terms of quantity. It's all about what it is and how it functions. Because like if I gave you a template, right, like an email script, that would get you, you know, if you send it to 3 people, one of those 3 people would book a webinar with you. And you know your average webinar, even if it's something small and you're only doing like $5,000 webinars because you're new at webinars, because we've all been there, right? That's worth a lot of money. You know, if you think about it, like if it's 1 in 3, guaranteed, like let's just say we had that, and I don't have that, nobody does, but let's say we did. The value of that is worth a lot of money, because the more people you send it to, the more money you get back. So I might charge you $10,000 for that email. If it's magically there, it will do that, guaranteed. Like take it to the bank, guaranteed. That's worth a lot of money, but it's just an email script. but because the result it gets is so powerful, people will pay a lot of money for that. And that's when you get into true business building versus like hustler mode, because hustlers always want to get more and more and get like they're looking for that incremental gain. I'm looking for paradigm shift gains. And so when someone takes a $50,000 webinar on the back end of a launch, it's not about just getting a lot of people in. It's not about just having like a 2,000 unit launch and then I'm going to sell XYZ amount because that's what I've done every time. This is why when people stick back at webinars on the back end of their launch, they don't know what they're doing, they still fail even though it's a fresh buyers list because they just don't know what they're doing. And you have to learn it or you pay somebody who does it for a living to teach you. But it's like, it's not just about, oh, I do a webinar and I'm going to make a shitload of money. That's what people like, I see it a million times over. That's why when people come to me, they're like, man, I got a webinar. It's converted at 30%. I'm like, what's the price point? $97. And I'm like, I have to stop myself because for them, someone who's launching $10, $20 products and they sell something for $97, they're really putting them out of their comfort zone. And I get that. And I'm very supportive of that because we all done that. We've all been at that point where we switch from like $20, like, man, $100. Oh God, I hope people buy it. And I can remember so many instances of that because the fear is the same whether it's 20 to 100, 100 to 500, 500 to 2,000, 2,000 to 20,000. The fear is there. It's the same feeling. It's just zeros and relativity, right? But that's where I also know, you know, like on a $500 offer, if it doesn't convert at 10% consistently, it's not even going to get into my portfolio. It's not going to be attractive to somebody. Because the other side of it too, and this is, again, it's all perspective, and that's why I'm saying all this stuff, is when you get into higher price points, it's all about dollars per attendee, not conversion rate. Because a $5,000 offer might convert at only 5%, but it's $5,000. Like that's $250 a attendee. That's a sick webinar. If it's consistent and low refund rate and all that, you know, and that's all assumed, you know, because I don't work with like hypey offers and stuff like that. So my stuff doesn't.
It's funny because, I mean, when you're doing this and you start with the low ticket offers, right? It's conversions, right? You need conversions. You need all that traffic to convert into people that will buy. And then you get to like the expensive shit. And now suddenly it has nothing to do with conversions. Like if you convert at like 2-3%, like you're saying, it doesn't matter. What matters is if you're on a webinar with say 10 people and you're producing 50 to 100 grand, I mean, that's magical, right? The conversion might be down. Like it's just so crazy that it's not about conversions. And I think
it's always, I'll tell you, honestly, man, and this is the big thing, it's always about money in, money out. It's just everybody sells at the low-end launch model. You know, your copy needs to convert at this percentage or people aren't going to be interested. You need EPCs of this bullshit number. Like, I don't know anybody in this damn world who has a consistent definition of earnings per click. Because the first thing I always say whenever people give me EPCs is that clicks divided by revenue? Or is that affiliate commissions divided by, or clicks divided by affiliates, or whatever the hell that math is, right? Because like if it's a 50% funnel and it's doing $3 a click, that means it's actually $1.50 because that's what I'm getting. And that's what you have to sell. And nobody makes a distinguishment. And like I always have to like reverse engineer the math. And that's where I'm like, I don't care about hype. I don't care about like someone trying to say I've got like, you know, 97 cents a click and it's cold traffic and it's this and the other thing. Because see, at the end of the day, and this is as you move higher up in the realm and you get more into people who are not like opportunity seekers, who are looking for, I'm one step above losing my house, to people who actually have problems and like they won't run real business. Because I've been in that market for like 3 years. So like, I mean, I admit when I first started out, I started out building a list and people who wanted like little quickie things and whatever. And it's great. And I still buy a lot of those quickie products because to me, I just see it as these people don't know how to sell the true value of what they're offering. Like I find stuff on the Warrior Forum all the time. It's like $10. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'd have paid like $300 for this because I can immediately use it. But they're selling to a crowd that would never pay $300 because they don't have it, right? So when you get into like where my world is, where it's like real businesses and like, especially when I do like my traditional biz dev stuff, I'm structuring stuff around people who have assets that are underutilized. So it's not just about conversion rates. It's about money in, money out. So like I go a lot of times from 0 to 25,000 just because I take assets that aren't getting used or a list that's not being mailed very frequently and I pull money out. Mm-hmm. So it's not even about the conversion rate. It's like you weren't making squat and now you're making something. Are you willing to give me a little cut of that? Well, yes. Because the only way I make money is if you make money. So you're really not out anything until you make money. Well, that's why I do things the way I do them.
I think you made a good distinction there, and it's worth pointing out, and I think we've had this conversation, you and I, that those $10 peeps in the warrior form, those are the people that came to look like you mentioned, but they came to make money, right? And there's two things that'll happen. You'll continue worrying about making money, and the longer you continue worrying about making money, the bigger a battle it's going to be. And then you have that distinction where a lot of people will draw the line where they never move past it. And yet I think that's where your starting point is, where it becomes about a business. It's about assets. It's about accumulation. It's about maximizing profits, right? And I think it's very different. So if I just want to make note to the people that are watching this that if some of what Brad's saying is a little like up there, I think that might be because you're still on that shift where it's about making money. And I understand that it's really hard to explain somebody the finite differences until they get there and realize how vast the business world is and the business portion of it, and how those numbers where you're throwing some big numbers around and kind of shitting on the peanut numbers, which is cool because that's where people should have hoped to.
But see, to me, honestly, I don't see the only differences between what I'm doing on deals and what people who maybe are starting out are doing are zeros, and I really truly believe that. And I love talking to new people who are still, like, for example, let's say you're still only launching $20, $30 products, and that's where your business is at right now. My business was there, 2016, like 3-4 years ago. So, I mean, in the big scheme of the world, like, I'm not that far removed from that. And really, it's actually less than that because I still did a couple, like, lower $27, $37 product launches with, I worked with Ben Atkins for a long time, a couple years back, and that was 2013, early 2014. So, I mean, do the math. I mean, it's still not that far away. But the thing is, it's only zeros, and there's a few minor details, and there's a lot of mindset things which are hard to measure. But the big thing is it's not. I know where I came from. I mean, like, I am fully there with the fact that, like, 90% of the people that we work with in our industry that everyone looks up to are a direct result because of Warrior Plus and JB2. Like, let's just be real honest. Like, these people aren't running paid traffic and getting leads outside like it's an affiliate-driven model. So, like, I'm not sitting here saying that, I'm the be-all, end-all. I'm great at what I do, but I've stood on the, this is something that's very important to me to say, and I say it in every interview that I do, is everybody stands on someone else's shoulders. Like, that's, I was just reading a post from a good buddy of mine, Ron Douglas, and he's talking about, he's been in this online stuff since '01, even before me, and he's done amazing things. New York Times best-selling author, big, huge. He has a gigantic list that would dwarf almost everybody's in the internet marketing space in the cooking food market, right? And he does very well. 3-4 QVC, like 3-4 books on the New York Times, it's done real well, right? And he still treats people the same, because he invests his money and he does well. He lives a very conservative life, very family-oriented guy. And I was just laughing because it was like, wow, like, the stuff that he was saying was so basic and it's so common sense to me, but in our industry, it's so important for people to realize you never know who is going to be big a year from now because this business is so leveraged. Because once you tap into the flow, it's like plugging in, going from like a flipped circuit breaker and turning it back on, and now you got power. It's that fast. Right? And you know that. I mean, you and me both know that because we've been there and flipped the switch. But for someone listening who hasn't flipped the switch yet, it's all about selling stuff. And it's so much easier to set and create an offer and step in front of traffic that's already there than it is to try to reinvent the wheel. This is why you see people doing a lot of the same stuff, because it works. There's a lot of restaurants in the world because everybody needs to eat. There's a lot of real estate because everybody needs a place to live. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why, like, if you look at where all the money is in the world, like, even in this business, you see it in the same general areas. There's a reason why, no matter how much it changes, SEO has always been a big market to sell information products in. Or video marketing, ever since YouTube came around, like, video has been huge one way or the other, and that's been since, what, '08, '09 or whatever. So, I mean, I've seen so many things come and go. And what people don't realize is that it's the same things over and over. And once you tap into that flow, I mean, business becomes really easy. So, I mean, people are not as far as they think, and they don't know that because, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I don't know what I don't know, right?
It's amazing, though, how they're not as far as they think, and it's as simple as zeros, which numerically they have a shit ton of value and they have no value whatsoever, yet the mindset shift to add that extra zero is huge. And I do think that it takes a little bit of a business understanding. In the post you're talking about, it's like the new crowd that like walks with a certain swagger when they got this one little thing figured out, and there's peaks and valleys, right? And it's
right. There it is, believe me. There are peaks and valleys. Last year was definitely a valley for me in a lot of senses. Well, I mean, I invested a lot of money lost, and that happens, you know.
Let's talk about that, though, because we all sit here, and I mean, there's very few guys that are sitting there going, you know what, last year shit the bed for me. And last year, I think you and I had both had a very par kind of year for, like, with each other, because at the beginning of the year, my income went way down because my goal was to cut out my coaching. And there was a big hit. It was like a punch in the gut. And I didn't realize how complacent and comfortable I had become because I could just flip that switch, grab some more clients, some more customers, maintain status quo. But once I started not bringing that flow in, I was like, all right, so maybe my plan isn't as solid. I need to go back to the drawing board. Went to Mayhem, talked to a lot of people that helped straighten that out. But that was an expensive venture to shift business models mid-pull. And there was some faith lost in a whole bunch of stuff, but you just got to stick to it. So I didn't have my best year last year. The end of it was amazing. So let's talk about this shit year, because I think that's just as important as everyone, because we're sitting here talking as the experts, yet we both had shit years last year. And I think it's important.
Oh, totally. I mean, and the thing is, don't, you know, the first thing I'll say this to everybody, don't trust anyone who acts like everything's all roses and cupcakes, because Facebook is like watching Sports Center of internet marketing. You know, you see all the alley-oop jams and all this badass shit, but you don't see when, like, LeBron James gets a ball thrown at his face and he gets smacked, he gets knocked over by a basketball, you know, and whatever, and you don't see all the losses. Because for every win that you see, there's 3 or 4 losses. And a lot of people, you know, in this industry, and it attracts a vagabond group of folks where, you know, you have people recovering, you know, alcoholics and workaholics and drug dealers and drug addicts and people who've been to jail and people who've made mistakes. I mean, I've seen every damn story in the sun in the last year where people have overcome, like, some really ridiculous circumstances and whatever, like, you know, bad childhoods and whatever you want to call it, right? So, like, everybody here is real. It's just like, are they going to keep it real? Because, like, I don't care, right? Like, I mean, I make more money all the time and can make money whenever I want. It's flipping the switch. And, like, where I failed last year was I really put myself out there, invested a lot of money, and thank God I had an amazing 14. It was my best year ever, and I saved it all because I wouldn't have made it last year, you know. You know, I got comfortable with what I was doing, brokering webinars, and I wasn't picking up new clients, and I got clear. You know, I took a couple clients on that, you know, I didn't end up working with them, but they were distractions for a month here, a month there. And then I invested a lot of money in projects that didn't work out, and you know, by the end of the year, it's like, man, like, what is it that I do? And what it really came back to is I basically thought and identified myself as a JV guy, and it's like, yeah, that's one thing I do, but it's not who I am, right? Like, and that's where, you know, kind of around my birthday, I turned 30 in October, and it's like, you know, what do I want for the next 5 or 10 years? You know, we got a kid on the way and stuff, and it's like, you know, you got to be real honest with yourself. Like, there's no room for ego anymore. I mean, you're a dad, so it's like you got to keep it real. Like, there's people depending on you. You don't have the luxury of being like, oh, everything's roses and cupcakes, because it isn't. It wasn't. And so I had, you know, I created a new brand and kind of really finally got it down to like a phrase with the Win-Win Deal Maker, and just the stuff that's happened since I did that and really put myself out there. It's like, that's my true calling, because it's like I do so much business development stuff, and like I wasn't getting paid on a lot of that, like writing campaigns and coming up with offers. I mean, I've seen so much stuff. And like, this is why I'm completely, I don't want to say jaded, but like it's really hard to get me excited anymore about stuff. The only things that really get me excited are evergreen things and like evergreen webinars and like things that pay dividends and developing systems for offer creation. Like I'm finishing up an offer creation system that's going to be amazing, and it's my Mona Lisa. I'm not releasing it to the public. I'm not going to sell that. It's one of those things that, you know, I'll work with people on it, but I'm using it. Like, and that's the other thing too is, you know, one thing I always say to people is like, if it is too good to be true, it generally is. Because a lot of people will show you, and you see this a lot in sales copy is where it shows up the most, I think, where people will say like, hey, I'm going to sell you a system that's making $30,000 a month. I'm going to give it to you for $20. And I'm like, that might be true in a lot of instances, but that's either one of two things. Either one, it doesn't really do that, or they did it once and it's not something that 100 people have duplicated, so it's not real. It's luck. It's not really whatever. Or they actually just don't realize how valuable it is. And I'll bet 99 times out of 100 it's someone who can't duplicate what they do a lot of times. Because I'm more interested in paying $10 for something that saves me 30 minutes. That's a very realistic thing, in my opinion. I've been let down a lot by offers like that. I don't like to sell that way because I like to keep it real with people. Because it's like if you say something takes work, you know, like if you put a lot of like, oh, this is going to be work. Like you're going to have to invest time. You have to work the system. You know, it's going to take a while to get these assets up. Most people won't buy that. But like to me, I'm very fascinated personally by someone that says, you know what, look, like I spent 30 minutes and I made $50. And I did that 6 times a day and now I make $300. And I'm like jonesing for products like that. Even now, like as successful as I've been, I still love it because I'm like, oh, I can get my VA to do this shit for me. I can get VAs like it's nobody's business to work this system, and I'll pay them $10, $15 an hour to do that kind of stuff. You know, I'll get Christina to do it when she's at home, you know, when the baby's born, and after things cool off, she's going to be home for a while, and she's going to want stuff to do. You know, not just that she's a worker person, like, you know, whatever. So she wants to make her own money, and I'm very respectful of that. So I'm like, okay, well, I can have her do it, or I can have her mom do it, because her mom's, you know, out of work right now. So, like, that's where my brain goes, because, like, that to me is very realistic. And usually when I find that, they actually hold out to be pretty true and accurate. Like, I spent 30 minutes, I made $50 or something, you know?
And here,
for me, that's what I found.
Here's the problem, though, and we'll go back to that make money business seeker mentality, right? Because very much so when I started out, that shit didn't appeal to me because I had a finite amount of hours in a day that I could use. Now, part of that was for perusing for products. Part of that was trying to figure out and applying what I did. Part of that was trying to listen to positive stuff. And I know a lot of people poo-poo that, like, look at all this, look at all this, look at all this, and then they deliver the reality to people. Well, to me, if people had never been swinging their arms way up in the air and making outlandish claims, I never probably would have chased it because it is that outlandish dream hook. Now, what happens there is that you'll find the separation after the people pick it up. And I have conversations with this all the time with people.
Right.
There's people that will buy a product for $20 that claims the whole world, and yet it doesn't answer one or two of their questions. Now, as a creator, you've got to go through and do some beta and try and get as much feedback as you can to make the course as in-depth as possible. But you're never going to answer the questions. And that's where it thins out. Who the fuck is going to Google to actually figure out how to help their dreams move forward? Now, if you only did it once and you show me how you did it, and I kind of see a little bit of results, you're off the hook. Go away. I don't need you anymore. I'm going to Google. I'm going to buy the next product, and I'm going to continue to amass an understanding of what I'm trying to do. But we have, and that's the problem with selling that way, is you have to sift through the shit, because now you can tell me, I'm looking at the new Peter Parks thing where he's like, and they're doing it, right? It's, by the way, I learned a ton just watching the way they structure.
Yeah, I saved it. I ran out of time yesterday. I can't wait to watch that.
It's rad. Check out the email they give you afterwards. It's just, it's so clever, and it creates such good, such a good relationship in their autoresponder and their email. Like, it's just really clever. But now I appeal to that stuff. Like, now that stuff appeals to me. I'm not afraid of a $1,500 offer. I'm not afraid of a $5,000 offer. And I'm not afraid when someone says, hey, look, Dink, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to do a shit ton of work, and it may not happen. I'm cool with that because I'm already established, but it's such a fine line because I know what you're saying, and I don't like that kind of thing. But I think if you don't appeal to that keep up with the Joneses, live up to the getting rich shit, I think you're going to miss out on a lot of people. And I think there are a bunch of people you call friends you may even not have ever met had people not sold in that way. So I understand what you're saying, but at the same time...
That's a good point of view. I hadn't really considered that point of view. That's a good way of thinking about it, too, because I'll be honest, I hadn't really considered that point. Because I always had a charge and a resistance on putting a lot of money testimonials and stuff, like unless it's other people saying they use my things. Like I love those because I mean, even a guy that nobody knows who says, hey, I booked a 72-hour deal using one of Brad's free videos, like the technique he talked about, I get more people reaching out to me to work with me off those than when like someone who's got a name value says something great about me, you know? Because that's the other thing. I don't believe a lot in celebrity. Like no one's a celebrity in this world. I mean, we are celebrity in our little tiny frame of the world, but you know, I'm real big on humble stuff and keeping it real. So it's still very uncomfortable even to say like $2 million because it's way more than that. But it's just like I don't really want to like go break it down because it's client business, and then it brings up like all that, you know. Do I share my clients' results? It's like that's kind of shady to me. Like,
well, if you're using the client's name, that's shady. But if you're using that your client, not saying who it was, brought in the money, that opens the doors. That opens the door to another person. And yeah, it's even better if that client will come on and say it. But there's so many people that have a lowest common denominator appeal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm personally one of those. If I see a stupid screenshot and a case study of something that you did with someone and all the results, I am more attracted to seeing that because I can pretty much figure out what a bullshit screenshot is and what a verified screenshot is. Just do the math on it, guys. If you're wondering and you see the screenshots and it says like $3 EPCs, just do the math. You'll figure out a shady screenshot pretty quick because the guys don't do their math very well. They were not math majors. But if I see that big, big claim and it turns out to be true, my wallet suddenly becomes more available to you, right? And I think that all goes back to that conversation we did have about the business owners, which coming from the business world, that's the type of person you're used to. But as that construction worker back in the day who didn't want a business, like I didn't come here to create a business and learn about wealth and investments and shit. I saw a guy with nice cars, fat stacks of cash, living in a house, lying to me about a Google coder and a fucking napkin. That shit got me going. It sold me and it started the entire thing. I just wanted money. I needed more money. We lost everything. I had 4 mouths to feed. And I needed to be sold on that because if you said, hey, dude, you need to take $1,000 right now and follow this system, I'd have said, piss off. I don't have it. I'm here because I need you to show it. And I think one of my strengths is this, and I'm always able to remember that point. And I think a lot of the people in our marketplace started from that point. Not many people started in the business realm, right?
No, they did, and I think that's the difference. You know, I think that's, you know, something like for me, like I'm very big, and you know, it's funny because like we actually want the same thing. Because I mean, I grew up in Indiana. I'm used to people who, you know, like if you had a Vet or a Viper, like you were like the baller. Like I didn't see a Lamborghini or a Ferrari until I was like 18 years old, right? Like I mean, I grew up in like country people, right? And my entire frame of reference of what people with money had was the guy who looked like, like a tractor. No, straight up, like the richest guy in our county. It was we kind of reverse engineered. He's probably worth about $50 to $100 million because we knew how many acres he owned and we knew what they sold for, so we could approximate his wealth. But he drove an old beat up pickup truck like Sam Walton or whatever, you know. And you know, that was the worldview of money. Like people who had money, you just never knew who they were. They were the guy who owned the local orthodontist practice and he owned like $3 million worth of real estate because he owned all the medical buildings that he had his offices in or something like that. So for me, selling that lowest common denominator, I felt, I mean, and I still do to a certain degree, that the reason a lot of those people are at that point is because people sell to people at their worst when they're desperate. And like I have a huge charge personally, like on an ethical level, to selling something that, like, I don't mind someone saying, like, you know, money. Like if you got real results with something, you have a duty to share those results with people and like whatever. Like I love when people share case studies and results and everything, obviously, because that's the best type of offer. But where I get stuck is I don't sell to people at their worst. Like it's like it's actually limited my income a lot because like I know how to push every psychological button on the limitation side, like greed, fear, scarcity, all those things. Like it's so easy for me to push those buttons. I mean, it's like I got my freaking keyboard here, and it's like, okay, which button do I want to push today? Okay, I want to push fear. I can push fear. I can push scarcity. It's that simple to me. But like to me, like I would never talk to you that way. Like we're talking here. Like if you and me were having a cup of coffee, I'm not going to sell you that way. It might work and it might be real. But like I have a thing where like if I wouldn't say this to you in person, I'm not going to say it to you on the computer. Pretty close to always true in that regard. Like that's why I say the same thing. So I take pictures of my dog and post them on Facebook and all this silly stuff because I say the same stuff to you I would say to you in person. And that's where, to me, it takes a lot of talent to speak to that person at that point. And it's just different markets, right? You know, and there's not a lot of differences because people still buy painkillers more than they will buy vitamins. That's a huge awareness for me in the last couple months. But at the same time, it's just different. Like I'm so focused on results. Anything that takes longer to get the result, I'm like, my lowest common denominator is not selling to people when they're broke and starving. Because like I think 90% of the people who are at the entry-level price point in the marketing world, like in the home business world, should get a job. Like, I think it's just, I really do believe that. You know, like if you're broke and don't have a job.
Right there, because I used to think that shit too. And then I did my very first application to my coaching program. And there was, I don't even remember when that was, but I was getting asked for it. So I'm like, all right, let's just put the application out there.
Yeah, right.
And half of them were the desperate folk on like disability. And then the other half were like doctors, lawyers. I had one guy I jumped on a call with. He, to this day, short of calm, has the highest net worth of anyone that I've ever talked to. The guy was loaded beyond belief, and he has like a real estate investment company, and he's just kind of like bored. So he's like, what else can I do to add it? And that day right there was when I realized that I needed to, as much as I needed to appeal to the lowest common denominator, I also needed to twist the wording a little bit to make sure it was an all-encompassing umbrella if I could, because it's such a diversity. And it's not those people, it's not always people that can only afford $10. In fact, I think that you have almost a 50% ratio of people that have the money that just want to figure it out. Because we're in internet marketing and make money online, they clash. So you'll have a lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers, a lot of people trying to figure out how to use the internet to create their own business and drive traffic to their own business.
True. Yeah, exactly.
The key is about how you structure that. But I just wanted to say, because I totally get passionate when people say that, because I used to think that way too, until I'm sitting down talking to a guy who shits out the money I'm asking for my coaching program with his coffee in the morning. And you know what I mean? So it's very important distinction. I think you got to remember that it's diverse.
Well, it is. No, and I'm not saying it's one or the other. What I'm saying is that like to me, based on results and having done this a long time, there's very few people in this world that have like, and the thing is, you're an outlier. I'm an outlier. We're both outliers. Like we're both statistically impossible to exist. But the fact that we do exist proves that statistics doesn't cover everything. We're so many standard deviations above the mean when it comes to people's work ethic, like ability to like I mean, like, honestly, and I just read about this, it's called hypomania, and it's a form of bipolar disorder. It's like a low-grade bipolar disorder that a lot of entrepreneurs have, and it's that part that, like, one day you can feel like you're going to king of the world, and then you can get kicked in the teeth 6 times, and you'll come back. Like, we all have it, right? Like, because rationally speaking, if you're the average human, someone who gets kicked in the teeth 3-4 times and doesn't get a tiny win to prove that even a little bit of this is work. That's why it's so important, like when people get their first WordPress installation done and they think they're freaking king of the mountain, the best thing you can do for them is like shout them out like they just won the Powerball last night. Because to them, that's what it is. Like in their mind, at a fundamental level, it's just as big as you doing your first webinar and pulling 10 grand on a pitch, right?
Yeah.
It's all relative. Or my first, $1 million webinar. Like I've never done $1 million webinar. Okay, like I'm not there yet. But that's where like it's so important to keep that, and that's why, like to me, and you have a real good talent at this, obviously, where you have a good way of explaining stuff to people, where it's everything in the right order. Like you're very good at like communication wise, like teaching people that. So it's important to say that like not everyone is like that. Like if you give me a 125-page ebook, go fly a kite. It isn't going to happen, right? If you need 125 pages to say something, you haven't edited it down. You're not a great communicator. I know that. Nobody's going to read that, and that means like the thing, because I'm very accountable to the result. Okay, if you make a course that's got 20 videos in it and 3% of the people watch the entire course, you failed, in my opinion. And that's just the nature of this business. Human nature is the way it is. You have to work with human nature the way it is and then structure everything around that to take advantage of human nature, not to let it run you. So for me, I like things as quick as possible with very results-based. I love the things that you can duplicate 100 times over. Like I love those little stupid things like I worked for 15 minutes and I made $10. And it's very like mechanical, like almost boringly mechanical, right? Because then my brain goes into, okay, how can I systemize this? How can I know how to hire VAs so I can have this done. I might not make as much profits, but I can do it 1,000 times. Okay, I'm interested, right? I love that stuff. Like that's why I love the Warrior Forum and low-end products, because there's so many of these things where everyone's like, oh God, why would anyone want to do that? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like it makes consistent money. Like it's consistent winners. Like why wouldn't you want that? But anyways, I'm not as attracted to the one-off wins. I'm attracted to the thing that every day I wake up and do this. Like I'm working on an offer right now, just to give you an example, in the arbitrage market with e-commerce world. And I've got a lot of people that do some really neat stuff, and they have software that finds items in one place and sells them in another, right? I think it's fascinating. I don't care if it takes 20 instances to make $200 a day, let's say, for example. Like Christina can run that. I can have a VA do a lot of the heavy lifting, and Christina can run that because she loves all those little shopping apps on her phone and all that junk, right? I don't like any of that crap, but she likes that stuff. So for her, that's a perfect business. For someone like her, it's perfect business. And there's millions of stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home dads that want that something that's consistent, and maybe they want to make $5,000 a month that changes their life forever. And I think there's a lot of nobility in that. But when you with deals, and this this kind of where I structure offers is I structure offers in such a way where I want to give you as little for as much money as possible, because I want to weed out people who think it has to be harder than that. Because if I can show you something in 3 videos, like I made a video and I've been posting these on my Facebook wall. I had somebody hit me up with a private message and said, yeah, hey, I used your technique and I reconnected with somebody on my best-selling product ever, and I got a 72-hour promo. And I'm like, okay, this guy's probably going to do 5 to 10 grand in business off that deal. So a free 3 or 4 minute video got this guy that. If it took me 30 minutes to say what I said in 3 minutes, I did him a disservice, and no one's going to watch that. So for me, I'm like,
hold on there though. I'm not poo-pooing the whole idea, because I understand and I agree with exactly what you're saying. Try and say it in this part. But if you're taking that video up to 30 minutes and it's allowing the customer more time to fall in love with you, to capture that first 3 minutes, then I think that's an important part of it too, because you're a pretty likable guy. And I think that 3 minutes is great, but that extra 27 gives me an opportunity to watch you talk about the pool and have it in the backyard, and it allows me that endearing space. And I totally understand what you're saying. Just so you know, keep the 30-minute videos coming, because they're fun. But yeah, you're right on the 3 minutes. I'm just saying I think people need to also realize that there is, as much as we hate the fluff, I think the fluff is super important. Like Peter Parks did how much fluff with the 500K, right?
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to say, like, you're a likable guy, so I think that you should totally put out a little bit longer than.
No, I'm going to do more. I mean, we've had like shit weather for 5 days now. Like it's like you should have seen the hurricane this morning, and now it's sunny. It's like we've had that, like with this El Nino crap. It's like it's so wet. Usually dry here in the winter, and it's been like rainy all winter long. It's bizarre.
Welcome to my world, my man.
Yeah, I know. You're in Canada. I expect that. You know, anywhere except for Florida. We're used to like 70 degrees and dry, and like it's like Arizona in the winter. It's like gorgeous. But you know, and that, I think, to me, you know, I'm at the point now where, and to kind of take this back to like deal making, and a lot of people, you know, I think anyway, like I know human nature pretty well. I grew up in a place where most people didn't have a college degree. You know, it's a car town, you know, manufacturing town. So people made good money, but I would say maybe less than 20% of the people in that town had a college degree, even a bachelor's, let alone anything more. So you get a lot of factory workers, a lot of, you know, good old boy networks, a lot of everybody helps everybody. And like, if you don't do that, you're like ostracized, right? So for me, I still do business a lot that way because I think that's the way 90% of the population is. And there's Christina. It's unlocked. Hold on a second.
Yeah, do it up, man.
Hold on a second. So it is.
Oh, I love.
See, that's priceless, man. That's
I love how
priceless.
direct it is, and it's my favorite thing though is it just reinforces the fact that yeah, we are sitting here in the middle of the day talking on the phone, but it's like,
well, it's like my fiance. She gets home from work and she's gonna come home and take a nap because, you know, with the baby and stuff, she, you know, takes naps in between work and stuff, and she's got something to do tonight, and it's like, well, I left the door open for you, and she's looking through the window. And I'm like, all right, well, that's what it is.
welcome to the talk show.
I know, right? But you know, it's funny, and I think so. For me, the way I do a lot of stuff is I go back to that, and like I talk to people at that, and I expect them a certain thing. And like when I teach people, like, you know, with getting deals and getting stuff for their products or getting affiliates, however you want to call it, is I really do have a fundamental view of what people want, and I know for a fact that most people who are making good money, everyone's number is different, but everyone I know has a number where their marginal money does not make more of a difference in their way they live, like lifestyle-wise, right? So some people it's 5,000, some people it's 10,000, some people it's 50,000. It doesn't even matter what it is. But at that point, and it's a beautiful point, because so much creativity gets opened up. And so you know, if someone's watching this and like, you know, I'm thinking to the person who's busting their butt to get to their goal, like maybe replace their job income. Like they want to quit their job, and so they need to make so much money and then a little extra. Because if you're watching this and you're starting a business, you need to make more than you think you do to quit your job, because you got to pay for taxes and all the other stuff. It's not roses and cupcakes. But anyways, aside from that point, I have to put that in there. You know, if you're at that point and money is like making more is where you're at, appeal to people who don't have that problem. Because, like, for example, I think it's a lot easier for somebody to get a deal with someone who doesn't need money than it is with someone who does need money. It's a lot more creative, and creativity is where deal making comes in. And I'll give you a couple resources, you know, some things that I use if you want to put on the site that I think are really helpful to get people to think creatively, because anything's possible. You know, I have basically a system that I follow, you know, my deal making system that I use internally and everything. And one of the things in the middle section of the system is I look at everybody's assets. And I'm really good, and I've always enjoyed this part of the business the most, so like I do a lot with it, where I see assets that nobody else has. And I just have, like, my brain is like an alchemist, where I like take two things and people are like, how are these things related? And then I combine them together in some way that no one ever thought possible. So I appeal to that type of person where the way I do business. So it's like you got something laying around, and this happens a lot, even more in the brick and mortar world, where people, you know, like say you're talking to a guy, and I've met people like this that own businesses, for example, like a septic tank cleaning business, right? Gross business, obviously. No one thinks to go into that business. But you get some of these old businesses like that have been in business a long time. They got 15, 20,000 customers, and they never do anything with them. They don't market to their own customers. So creating money out of that is so easy once you know human nature. And I think that's something that's really key, is that, like, it's not about webinars or 72-hour specials or softwares or product launches or email lists. It's communicating at a human nature level. If I know you're interested in something, it's easier to sell you something in that area than it is if I know you're not interested in it. And I think a lot of people, where they struggle when, like, you know, when I teach people the stuff that I do, or people talk to me, they're always amazed at how simple it actually is. And I'm like, Well, yeah, because like think of like movies. How does most of the marketing for cinema happen? Somebody tells their friend, "Oh, hey, you got to go see the next Star Wars. I got my Star Wars shirt on. You know, you got to see it. It's awesome. It's like New Hope. It's like this. It's this. It's this. It's so awesome. You know, the character's great. Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it." And that's what keeps movies. They actually have a word for it. I forget off the top of my head what it is on Box Office Mojo, where it's something that like has a big surge the first weekend and people keep going to see it multiple times. It doesn't happen a lot anymore like it did when we were like born, like in the 80s. People go see movies 3 or 4 times because the tickets were less. But now for a movie to get like people to go see it 2, 3, 4 times, even Titanic in '97, people would see that 4 times on average. So that's why it made so much money. Or Avatar. Avatar's another big one. Or the Harry Potters or Hunger Games, you know, Star Wars. People see these movies multiple times because the word of mouth is so important. That same thing applies in business across the board. It's just that instead of like word of mouth by that, it's an email list. So in a lot of ways, it's very easy to create deals with other product creators who have something sitting around. Because like, let me ask this question. I mean, you can ask all your guys because you have a lot of great product creators who are blowing up right now, and they've been churning product out one after the other. Work the system, like keep going, grind, a little bit bigger next time, a little bit bigger, live and learn, live and learn, live and learn. And all of a sudden, 10 launches in, they're doing real big. You know, it's like they look like an overnight success story, but you didn't see all the 8 products that came before that might only sold 500 or 1,000 units. But every time they get bigger, and it's so easy for these guys who've got like 8 products laying around for someone like me to come in and say, like I look at their portfolio, and I see that they're not selling it, and I see it still works just as good today. It's, you know, not one of those things where it's like a loophole type of product, which those are good too, but they don't last as long. But let's say it's something that's keeping going. And with some minor updates, that can go from a $20 product to a $300 product. And like, they might not know that because they've never done it before. Just, you know, we don't know what we don't know. But someone like me comes in and is like, okay, so we add this and change this a little bit and write a presentation, and now we got a $300 webinar. I can come in because I know what I know, right? Just like everyone knows what they know, and I can come in and create a $300 product out of that, and I can double their business overnight. Now, is that a win? That's a win-win, and that's why I look at everything as a win-win. That's why it's the win-win deal makers. I'm always looking for those win-wins. I'm going to get a cut of that action. You better damn well believe it, but it's only going to be when you make money too, and the affiliate makes money and you make money, or even if you run it internal to all the people, because this is one, you know, an easy thing just so someone can take something from this and use it. If you're creating product and let's say you got your first product and it does well, but let's say it sells 200-300 copies. Let's say that's a pretty good start, you know, in business and at a lower price point. And then you sell 5 products and now you're kind of in the same, you know, family of products. But you're selling 2,000 products now, let's say, because you've gotten more affiliates, you build more relationships, you convert well, blah, blah, blah. So you're at 2,000. There's a lot of people that have never seen this product again. So you'd be dumb, and I'll tell you this is the simple way to do it. Take that entire funnel, package it up into one thing, and run a 72-hour special. Run it for a weekend to the people that have never even seen it before. So you sold it at launch at a low price. That's fair. Now it's done later. Sell it for, say it's the front end's $27 or something, and now sell for $100. So keep it real simple, keep it real basic, you know. And you do that, and you'll sell 50 or 100 copies over a weekend. Also to people who've never seen it before, right? And I see this all the time. People got stuff sitting around, and this is what I do on a daily basis, right? Right? I'm serious. This is what I do with people. Like I have documentation and worksheets and stuff that I do, and people are like, how the hell do you get so many winners? It's like, I'm going after the low-hanging fruit. I know stuff that works, because if you've never seen this shit before, and you're the same type of person, and one of the things that I've picked up a piece of advice that one of my mentors told me, and he's like, business owners will tire of their ads before the customers ever will. And the same thing applies to products, because you might get bored of this product here, but someone who's never seen it before might think it's the freaking next coming of Jesus on this earth. Dude, I've never seen it before.
Because I do so much in the videos, and then I jump in and I cut them, and I make the product, and it's like, by the end of even like, before I've even launched it, I'm so sick in my face and voice, like I can't even stand it. So when launch is over, you're like, yes, no more me. And I think like we take this break, and I don't think it's like, you notice how people will take a little break after their launch. I don't think it's because they don't want to make money. I think they're just sick of everything that's them explaining shit in their own faces. But such a valuable point. I mean, I'm even sitting here, and I know we've had conversations, and I think we've even talked about this, and I'm like, duh, I've got like 600 products just sitting there that are already done, and I haven't used them again. And it makes so much sense, but you do, and you forget, like, because you got so sick of it by the end, it's not as though you think it's less valuable. You're sick of it.
Right.
And it's
that's the thing. That's the difference between, and this is the thing this is where discipline comes in. And I hear this a lot. And someone who, I like to create content, but I don't like it as much as like someone who's like a creator. I do it to have a purpose, and then I want to reuse it. That's my thing, is I don't want to create content that I don't reuse. It's just my wiring. So it comes into play where it's discipline. Like, first off, like after you've made a little bit of money, like like in your case, I would never edit video again unless it's a quickie video. Like I'm getting to the point now where, and I saw something, I don't know if you know who Jesse Elder is, but I really like his video stuff, and he had a little image, and I'll send it to you because it's really useful. But he talks about mastering and being so present that you can do everything in one take with no editing. And like your messaging and your preparation is so good. So like I mean, you can't see it because it's out on the patio, but I have selfie sticks that I use to shoot videos because it helps steady out the camera, so I don't have to set up a tripod. It looks like I have a tripod even though it's like a selfie video, but that's how I do it, right? So I look ridiculous holding a selfie stick if you're in person, but to me it makes a better quality video, and I don't have to edit it because it's not like wobbly when you're doing that hand shit, Periscope style crap, where it's like wobbly. But that's where, like, for me, discipline comes into play, because the thing is if you see yourself as a protector of your audience and a leader of your audience, you have a duty, responsibility, and obligation to share stuff that will get them the results that they need. And assuming that you're creating products to get people results, which, I mean, I hope everyone watching this is focused on results, you have a duty to create stuff in such a way that everyone will see it. Now, another thing that people can immediately use, and I hear this all the time, is everyone's looking for the fancy, retargeting or fancy Facebook ads, custom audiences, this and all this other stuff. And I know you did an interview with David, and David's one of my partners, so I'm not trying to bust on him nothing because he's one of my buddies. But if you don't send emails to your customers promoting your past offers, once they buy, like, your 5th product, and you're not sending them to deals where you've created, like, you packaged up the entire funnel and you sell it straight up for $100 and you get everything, like the templates, the software, whatever the fuck it is, and you don't sell that to them in an automated follow-up sequence, you're an idiot. Like, I'm just going to say it how it is. And I know why. Because here's how you get away from that whole, what's the word? How did you put it? Like, you get so sick of seeing yourself and you see the same product or whatever, you get so sick of it, is that it's not about you anymore. See, this is where the discipline comes in. Like, when you transcend the self and you get to be like Jim Collins calls it, or it's Jim Collins or Tom Collins, whatever it is, in Good to Great, he talks about the level 5 leaders, and it's about someone who's so big that they have such a, they build a company and they lead a company, and when they retire, they're like, oh yeah, I used to work there. They create organisms that are self-reliant without them being there. That's a true leader. Is that when you leave, the place is better off than when you found it, and it can run without you. Level 4 leaders are the guys where, they're the show, and as soon as they leave, the businesses collapse, right? That's not a true leader, right? So it's the same thing with us. And I'm not 100% there myself, so this is something I'm working on this year, is I'm getting stuff in place and building things there where my money gets made all the time off of an asset and a piece of work that I do. So I spend a lot of my days creating systems and email campaigns and swipe files that I use internally, because there's so much money that's laying around. And it's not even just the money. The money is the end result, but it's like you're adding so much value, because if you're creating products in the same kind of family, like you're creating like 10 SEO products or 10 video products or 10 arbitrage products or whatever, the people that see your 7th one have most likely not seen your 1st. If you're growing sequentially each time because you learn and you systemize and you practice and get better, right? You're going to have a lot of people who've never seen that stuff. And with a little bit of modification, a lot of times those products can keep selling on an ongoing basis with a little bit of updates here as things change and update, whatever, right? So this is why I always tell people, don't create little hack loophole products, and I'm a master of hack products, so I can say that, is don't create those, because you won't be able to sell them after a while. But if you sell something that with a little bit of updates, and you go back and you have that follow-up sequence that's constantly, you're reusing the same emails, you're reusing the same promotions. Like if you had like for example, in my world, I tell people this all the time with evergreen webinars. Everyone's like, oh, I want to do evergreen webinars. I want to do evergreen webinars. Like, okay, that's great. Well, you wrote the campaign once to run the webinar, to fill it up. People bought it, so obviously your emails pre-sold them properly. You had a good closeout campaign once the replay was done, so all the shit's done. So the easiest way to have an evergreen webinar is to take the replay and run it again inside GoTo or whatever webinar service you use, and sell it again, or buy every webinar and make your life real easy, okay? And you've got those emails, so you run that once every 6 months. People will remember it, because the people that are on your list 6 months from now are not always going to be the same people that are on it now. Like if you're doing products and you're constantly growing your list, there's people that didn't see the promotion, or maybe they were just not available, or they forgot. Like, I'm not really into that right now, but now 6 months later they are into it. And you've got a promotion. So this is where, like, when I was doing brokering a lot of times for people, I would go out and hit affiliates up like 6 months later. I had a 3 to 4 month Asana checklist on this, okay? And I would go out and I would reach out to them the second time. You make 60 to 70% of the first promotion the second time, and then it goes down from there sequentially. So I'd have people that would run a webinar 3-4 times. Why? Because it's a zero risk transaction. They know they got paid the first time. They know it converted. They know they had good feedback from their customers. So it's a win-win-win. Even though they don't make as much money, it's lower risk, which the higher up you go in the affiliate realm, it's more about risk reduction than it is about getting that last extra 1% conversion rate. Yeah. And that's why the guys who get huge, who do like $50,000 webinars, $100,000 webinars, the reason they can do that is because they've reduced all the risk to zero, meaning like they only work with people who create good products. They work with stuff that has good feedback, low refund rates, so they don't burn their list out. And they treat their people, and it's actually stuff that solves the problem that they need. So at the end of the day, those two things, like selling your past products, reusing a good promotion periodically, it's so much low-hanging fruit, and you put it on your calendar. Yeah. Build out a calendar for the year, and like say, okay, every 8 weeks I'm going to run this. Every 16 weeks I'm going to run this one, and start stacking your calendar out. Even if you have to change it, it doesn't matter. Stack it out like a real freaking business, like a promo, like the blogging world calls it an editorial calendar, or like news media does that. Like they'll have like when they're launching specific pieces of content. Do the same thing with your promos, And then when you go out to a certain point, you've got a list of say like 2,000-3,000 people, and every month, like if I run these 3 promos and one new thing, I'm going to make $15,000. Let's say that's where your business is at, and that's what you want to get to. It's a lot easier to do that when you've got it stacked out, and then, if you're 6 months ahead and you've got like a loose idea of what you're going to be doing each month, I can work on something today that might not pay off until 3 months from now, and I'm doing pretty good in life. And even if I have to adjust, or like, I'm going away this weekend because my buddy invited me to the cabin, okay, well, we'll just run this next weekend. We'll flip it around. Okay, big deal. It's a lot easier to do it when you do it that way than when every week you're wondering, oh shit, what do I mail?
Well, I like the growth revenue that provides as well, right? Like, because it's like you'll get to a point where it's just where you're not planning it out. And I know that I'm the biggest one. When I first started out, my autoresponder sequence looked like something from it just looked like schoolwork. Like it looked like everything was there. And now as I go, my autoresponder sequence looks less and less. And you're at points where you're like, okay, so where am I getting new revenue from? And really, you don't even need to, because it'll go in, and then you can afford to do that Facebook traffic that David talks about. You're like, I've run this 3 times. This is kind of an average. Now I can head over to David. I don't even give a shit how much David costs, because I have that money in the bank, and I know that this is going to produce. Now it's just about getting David to be the magician and do his thing. So it's...
Well, and that's where people like him, and David's the paid traffic version. I'm the JV version of what David does. If you don't have solid things, I don't work. My stuff doesn't work unless you're solid. Yeah. And I'm okay with that, because I'm not trying to be everything to everybody. I'm there for guys who have their shit together, and they're like, I want leverage. I'm leverage in that way in JVs. David is leverage with paid ads.
Keep it there, because I think... And I know I said we would talk for hours, but honestly, after the shit that you just pulled on us there, and you just you pulled the carpet under probably a few people's feet, they're just like, what the hell? I've wasted so much content and so much time. I'm going to leave it there, because he is the leverage. So if you want to talk to him, head down below, click on the links, and go and talk to Brad. Because, dude, we could sit here and you could spew out magical shit all day, but honestly, I think that ended it quite nice. Because it is. Like, we had a great conversation, as always. You and I bring up some good points, so there were some thinking points. But at the end there, you really laid out exactly what people need to do. And as much value as I want to give people, and I'm trying to help out for businesses.
You got to keep it structured, dude. Yeah, totally.
No, we got to stop it, because I don't want you giving away any more. Like, I really don't. Like, if you're watching this and you've had any results with anything and you can't see, like, guy just probably added thousands and thousands of dollars to your business. You want to take that, you want to figure out how to make it deeper, go talk to Brad again. There's no pitch or anything, but I think he ended pretty nicely there, and he is the leverage that people are looking for. People in the business love Brad. So, Brad, I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to say thank you for everything that you just did, and I really enjoyed the conversation that we just had. And I honestly, I think what we just did there was the true essence of what I wanted with Behind the Hype. There wasn't a lot of question and answer. It was just a good conversation that we had about shit, and some people are going to benefit from our conversation. So provided all the recordings take and they got our voices, it's cool. If not, I got it all, and I'm happy with that too.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win for you. Either you get a recording or you just got the knowledge.
Either way, I win, so I'm good, which is odd because I didn't put this up for my own winning, but it's going to work out. So everybody, Brad Spencer, all his details are down below. I know nobody's going to comment down below. I always say that. I don't know how people get all these people to comment on their blogs, because nobody ever comments on my blogs. I'll get emails about it, but I just won't get that comment. So go talk to Brad, say hi, figure your shit out, figure out how he can make you some more money. That's it for this episode. Thank you, Brad. Do you have any words to say to these people before you go?
Just win-win. Figure out a way in everything you do to make sure everybody involved in the transaction wins, because life gets so easy when you do business that way. You make more money and you have no stress, no drama, no bullshit. Like, life is easy at that point.
Right on. That closes the longest episode of Behind the Hype to this point. And yeah, that's it. Cool. Later.